Welcome to the Limitless Energy Podcast. We are here today in Detroit at the Battery Show in the Volta Foundation Lounge. And my guest today is Jamie Sheard, Head of Battery Technology at the Strativ Group. Thank you for joining.
Thank you. Yeah, pleasure to be here. It's nice to be on the other side.
On the other side.
Yeah.
That's right. Jamie has his own podcast. But we can talk about that. First, let's talk about the Strativ Group. So what does the Strativ Group do?
Yeah, so the core part of our business is talent solutions. So we're at our core recruitment business. And to give a bit of history, we founded the business around 6 years ago, 6 years at Christmas. And a large part of that business was focused around future mobility. So we mainly focus on EV and eVTOL. And then since then, over the years, we've evolved the different business units. And now a large part of what we do is actually batteries. So we have a large team focusing on batteries. So yeah, that's the main focus. And in terms of our battery team, mainly North America and Europe is where we focus in terms of talent solutions. We do help some customers and clients in Asia as well.
Okay, so the company originally started 6 years ago, but when did the focus on batteries really originate?
So I'd say maybe 4 years ago. My colleague Reese really kind of founded the clean tech division, and then we branched and kind of really put all of our eggs in the batteries basket. Mm-hmm. So to give you an idea of the structure, there's I think 12 or 13 people now, consultants who focus specifically on batteries, and that's all the way through the chain from materials and a cell pack module all the way through to recycling, kind of going full cycle. And then we have people who focus on more commercial positions and go to market, others who do more engineering disciplines like mechanical and electrical. So helps us to have more specialists that can help clients in terms of whatever they might need.
So was this, I guess, expansion into batteries caused by the pool of talent that you had and that you've noticed a common theme there, or was it actually driven by the customers, by your the companies you worked with?
Yeah, probably the latter. So a big customer of ours, Lilium, so they were big customers on the eVTOL side, but then they needed some support on the battery side of the business. Same with Supernal and a couple of others focusing on eVTOL. And then since then, we've got some introductions into more battery-focused businesses, battery-centric businesses. And then we just identified the opportunity. And we'll talk about it later in the conversation, but we just think it's a super dynamic industry. A lot of people who want to do good in the industry. I've worked in a few different spaces, and we just thought let's really go at this because it's exciting. There's a lot of investment, and it's obviously the future.
So was the talent pool already there and ready for the transition, or did you have to do something actively to fundamentally change your talent pool?
Well, it's a good question. I mentioned before we focus more on North America and Europe, whereas typically the main talent pool is in Asia, so China and South Korea. So sure enough, over the years, it's got better, but still we have a lot of clients who are looking for people, and sometimes those people just aren't in North America. So we're either recruiting them from China or South Korea and recruiting them over, or sometimes they have to compromise on what they need. So it's a real ongoing journey, which again is exciting because we need to upskill, we need to look at new ways of allowing our kind of current talent force to make the move, make that more comfortable.
Have you seen a move overall, the distribution of the talent pool to be shifting over more from Asia to Western countries at all?
In terms of it being attractive to move over?
In terms of if you're trying to identify potential talent, is the distribution still very much skewed to Asia the way that it used to be, or is it starting to become a little bit more distributed globally?
It's getting better. It's definitely distributing more globally, but then with that comes the challenge of language as well. Something that I've identified. I've recently moved to Spain, and you don't realize how difficult it is to actually move somewhere and not be able to speak the language. So a lot of talent is moving from Asia over to North America, which is great, but it's not easy to learn a new language and a new culture and everything else. And that's something that's sometimes undervalued in terms of how difficult that can be for somebody's life, but still a big part of a big a big part of the demographic in North America of those experienced people who've taken, small scale pilot line all the way through to mass scale and gone all the way through to commercialization. A lot of those people are from Asia still. We don't have many people.
That's what I was getting at. Yeah.
From North America, from Europe, who've done that. So that's the thing. A lot of the time, clients need to understand that they either need to compromise because these people are very difficult to. There's not many of them, and they're kept very happy.
Mm-hmm. That is interesting. This is as you noted earlier, it's a very dynamic industry, and it has been dominated by Asia for such a long time, for decades now. And in terms of how it becomes more global and how North America and Europe really compete on the world stage, in your view, what needs to change?
I think so in terms of the visa system, I don't know the intricacies, but I know it's fairly difficult at times. We had somebody who we relocated from South Korea to Massachusetts, and still they're in the system. This happened back end of 2023, and they're still in the system waiting to get that kind of full approval. Mm-hmm. And it takes a long time, and it's stressful. And for an entire family to make a decision around, do we make the move, that process being easy makes it a lot easier for the family to go, yeah, let's do this. It's an exciting adventure. It's just complicated, and it's too big a risk. Mm-hmm. If somebody is settled and has roots there. I think something else that is needed is identifying peripheral markets where we can not take people from, but upskill individuals from to move into batteries.
Just material scientists and
exactly material scientists, and then on the manufacturing side, there's not many individuals with wet coating experience from other industries. Dry coating, sure, with kind of powder and rubber and paper. So I think maybe stand a bit more of a chance on that side. Mm-hmm. So it'd be interesting to see if that plays a factor in what technologies and what processes become mainstream and become large. Mm-hmm. The talent pool, whereas other times it's more the viability of the technology. I think the demographic and the availability of talent pool might have more of a pull or a say on what companies are successful and what aren't.
Right. Well, we've talked about the evolution of the talent pool. What about of the customers? What about of the companies? How has that been evolving over the last, let's say, 5 years?
Yeah. Well, just kind of go back to my history. So I originated in the medical devices field. So I worked in medical devices. Then I moved into the mining industry, and then I moved into batteries. So that was quite an interesting transition.
What are you doing in medical devices?
So I was doing urology and endoscopy. Mm-hmm. So endoscopy, like the kind of medical devices, all around kind of laparoscopy and keyhole surgery, essentially, minimally invasive. And then I also did some neurology.
That's kind of mining. Sorry.
yeah, in a way. In a way, we're searching for stuff for sure. And then the whole reason I moved into mining was we were actually going to relocate to Australia. And of course, there's a huge presence there, particularly on the west coast of Australia. So I learned a lot about lithium and that kind of mining process. And then obviously moving now into batteries. Again, it was more of a situation in terms of lifestyle because we got married. We couldn't move to Australia because of COVID, of course, in 2020. And then we got married, and then we decided to move to Barcelona, where we live now. And I joined Strativ Group, and just happened at the time that batteries is really emerging, and we want you to kind of take this and really move with it. So I've had the benefit of working in different industries, and what I identified in batteries straight away was people are so friendly. Honestly, first and foremost, I was like, people are so open-minded, and they're forward-thinking, and which is refreshing.
I agree.
I'm paying you a compliment.
Thank you.
But I was like, this is so interesting. And then in terms of the investment, the dynamic element of the industry, and very, very kind of fast-moving, and that's why we almost kind of put all of our eggs in the battery basket, was because we just saw huge potential. Things have been challenging over recent, kind of past year, 18 months, but still the outlook is very, very positive. Mm-hmm. And you just need to look at the show today. The first time it's in downtown Detroit. It was in Novi last year. It was way too small a facility for so many people, is just growing so much. And I think there's going to be one in Atlanta now as well, next year maybe. I'm not sure, but it's just testament to all of the work everybody has been doing. Everyone's forward thinking, excited, and as I said before, do good. It's like people want to do good, and the Volta Foundation is a key example of that. People want to come in and actually give their time to educate and help the entire industry improve, and that's invaluable to the success of an industry. So that's why I'm optimistic.
So your role at Strativ as the head of battery technology, how did that evolve into relationship with the Volta Foundation podcast? How did the podcast come about? What you're doing more than just recruiting talent?
Yeah, I think it was important to be fully embedded in the community. So a lot of recruiters have a bad reputation, and sometimes for good reason. But what I think we wanted to do was demonstrate our investment and our commitment to the industry by creating a non-for-profit community like Take Charge. We were inspired by what Volta Foundation was doing, and we saw an amazing opportunity to form a partnership with them, create more content to put people on the map and help our customers talk about key issues. And because a lot of the businesses in this space are fairly small, and they're starting up and scaling. And, it's important to get the message out there because everybody has an amazing message, but doesn't always have the platform to express it. So that's what Take Charge was born to do. And from a selfish perspective, it was to show people that we're good people, and that we care, and that we're invested in this space, and we're in it for the long run, not just to work with a customer once and then go away. Because if you do a bad job for one or two customers, we talk about how big the show is today, but the industry is very small, and people can talk ill about a business, and ultimately it will affect reputation. So going all in on the industry is a risk, but I think a risk worth taking for sure.
Yeah, well, you have a unique view of the state of the industry by, being the big player in managing the talent. So is there anything that you can tell me in terms of long-term and short-term trends? I mean, certainly with the IRA and all of a sudden all these gigafactories are being announced, there was probably a boom in what you're doing, and then maybe a little bit of a correction in the EV demand that we've seen globally, or at least in North America. Is there anything you can say about your observations of these trends?
I'd say short-term, an interesting trend that we're seeing is a reluctance to relocate. So
really,
yeah, it's really interesting. So
people are used to remote work.
Yeah, well, remote work, and obviously, as we know, in working in laboratories and scaling pilot lines, you need to be on site. At least 4 days a week, normally 5 days a week. So therefore, people need to relocate. And over the years, that's typically been the nature of our work, relocating people to different facilities. There's a huge ecosystem in the Bay Area, for example. But if you have clients in Indiana or Chicago, North, South Carolina, these ecosystems are growing, but they're not the finished article yet. So a lot of people have to relocate, and they can't just rely on growing their career in one state or one location. But in the past, I'd say 2 or 3 months, we've seen a trend of just a reluctance to relocate or make the jump, make the move. Maybe that's the upcoming election, potentially.
Just uncertainty and
uncertainty, and just maybe we'll kind of want things to settle before they uproot the whole family and make a move across the states. So that's a real short-term one that we're seeing. In terms of what our clients are demanding, the trends we're seeing there is more on somebody who has experience scaling pilot lines all the way through to mass scale and commercialization. So somebody who's really gone commercial within their career. A lot of great academics who've moved into different businesses and had great success, but bringing somebody in who's been there and done that. That's what all of our clients need, which is obviously hard to find. We said before, a lot of these people are in Asia. Something we don't see is, something I say to myself is, why can't our clients just bring somebody on board and upskill them and develop them? But they can find them people themselves. they pay us to find the people that are super difficult to find. So
are they paying you to find people that can come in and train them? Is that the difficulty?
They wouldn't use a firm like it's the really hard to fill positions that, there's only a few people who can actually do this role. Are they available? Can they relocate? Are they in budget? There's so many factors, and that's why it's difficult. Some people see it's a super difficult job. It's a difficult industry to work in, but so is every industry.
Yeah, well, it's unique in terms of how quickly it grew, the industry, and also because it's not a software industry. Maybe there's some software, but that you're actually manufacturing, you're making something. And I mean, I guess we see something similar with, let's say, AI, just a boom in that industry. But now you're looking for coders. You're looking for software. This is pretty unique in terms of, you have to find people that are used to mass producing things. So is there any, you kind of alluded to this, but adjacent industries that you can draw from? And there's obviously manufacturing in North America and in Europe, and people know how to mass produce certain things. And you've alluded to maybe powder coating. Powder coaters might be easier to find. But what can you say in terms of the talent pool associated with adjacent industries that you can pull into the battery industry?
Yeah, I'd say, as I mentioned before, wet coating processes. There's not many industries. There's not much talent there available. So that's, I think, where the biggest need will be in terms of upskilling people. There's a lot of great universities now, and lecturers who whether that be material science or chemical engineering or mechanical engineering associated to batteries. That's improving a lot. So I think there are a lot of just people coming from their PhDs, better qualified, from within the States. So that's great. In terms of adjacent industries, I said before, for dry process, paper, powder, rubber, anything that deals with powders is going to be, I think, where the easiest transition can be made. And something that I speak to clients about a lot is the location of their factories. Obviously, the conditions, in terms of the climate conditions is important, but then also available talent. So, customers and clients are thinking quite carefully about where they locate their facilities. And at the moment, it's difficult. There's not many ecosystems that's perfectly set up for it. There's always going to be some kind of compromise. So, adjacent industries, I've only mentioned a few there. I'm sure there's others that we could look at as well. But it's definitely essential to be able to staff all of our requirements.
Right. Well, I would argue that a perfect ecosystem is in Reno, Nevada. I don't know. Will you agree with me?
Of course, I would agree. Okay. On your podcast.
Well, it's so beautiful out there. But to be fair, there's a lot of companies that have popped up in and around Reno, both on the upstream side and on the pack production side. Everything from mining to the, as you noted, the processing all the way to the recycling. So I would imagine that Reno is one of the hot spots in the country. Is it generally considered to be?
For sure. I'd say, we talked before about the kind of changes in the trends. What we found before was very, California, of course, the Bay Area, of course, Massachusetts, around Boston, yeah, for sure. But now there's more pockets of pretty sustainable hubs of talent and businesses that can all kind of support each other.
Where else? Where are one of the less expected pockets?
I think we're seeing more in Chicago. For example, Michigan, of course, has always been strong, hence we're here today. We have some clients in Indiana, and then North and South Carolina. I think we're seeing a lot more there in terms of battery manufacturing. Mm-hmm. So they're less obvious, but Texas as well. Yeah. Texas, yeah. We're seeing some good movement there. Mm-hmm. But that's what's been exciting is now when we're given an assignment to work on a position in a certain location, we have more options because there's actually people with not maybe the perfect experience, but peripheral experience that they could move into, and they don't need to relocate. Because 5 years ago, it was mostly relocation because the talent wasn't there. So it's improving for sure, and the rate of improvement and available talent is all quite staggering. It's the fastest rate of improvement I've seen versus the other industries I've worked in.
So where do you see the industry in 5-10 years, and what is Strativ doing to prepare for that evolution?
This is a question I ask at the end of my podcast as well. It's a good question. I see maybe a chemistry that's actually gone somewhere and it's worked. I'm fascinated by dry electrode and solid state technologies. So I hope there's been some movement there. There's, it's not just a case of making more batteries, maybe a different sort of battery. So the availability of talent is going to improve, but I think the demand for talent is actually going to increase at a higher rate, and the skills gap could actually increase, which is exciting in a way for us, but also we need to do more. And I think something that we're going to do is actually look at ways of, rather than just finding talent that's even harder to find, actually can we just kind of training program, or can we put some kind of mentor?
Is that unique for a recruitment firm to do that?
Yeah, sure. Normally it's pretty one-dimensional kind of headhunting from positions to positions, but the Take Charge podcast was there to help spread the message and spread the word, things like that, kind of improve the awareness. But I think we could add more value, some more tangible value from whether that be a mentorship program or training, or connecting people together for the good of the industry. So that's kind of what Volta Foundation are doing. So I think with a foundation like Volta, so we can learn from and lean on it, the industry's got a good chance. But the future's exciting for sure. Yes, that's why we invested so much into it. I see ourselves in it for a long time.
It is interesting how analogous it is to the rate that we can get raw materials, out of the ground, resources out of the ground, to the demand of batteries, and that gap. It's similar to, people. You need the people too, in addition to the raw materials.
Something I did mention was supply chain. I think we'll see a big change in supply chain in the next 5-10 years. That needs to happen, both from a sustainability perspective, but also from a kind of geopolitical perspective. It'll be as we're growing, it can't just be all exports. I think that'll be interesting to see. Yeah.
Great. Well, very exciting time in the industry, and kudos to you and Strativ to being a huge part of it.
No, thank you for inviting me onto the show and for all the good work that you're doing. We value the partnership, so thank you very much.
Cheers. Thanks for being on.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Li-MITLESS Energy Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on any of your favorite podcast platforms.